everyone. Before you see me, I would like you to answer one of my questions. Have you ever been given nicknames? For example, at school for some reason, I am sure that everyone has been nicknamed in one way or another. Some people have funny names while others have quite offensive ones, and I am no exception. Attention please, my friends and acquaintances are calling me Avatar and also Smurf, Shrek, or aliens. Yeah, it sounds funny, but not in my case. The thing is that my skin is green, so now you'll get to know why it looks like this and how I live like this. In fact, my name is Rose. I used to be an ordinary schoolgirl living in a quiet small town with my mother, but everything changed when I went to high school and got very sick. On my way home from school, I got caught in heavy rain and soaking wet. By the evening, I had a fever, my cheeks turned red, and my head was aching. But the worst thing is that I got a stuffy nose. If you only knew how much I hate having a cold. As luck would have it, on that day, my mother worked the night shift. And in our first aid kit, there was absolutely nothing that could treat a cold. I rummaged through all the shelves until I found some strange spray. There were no ingredients or expiration date on the bottle, but still I used it. And it was effective. Why am I telling you about this in such detail? You will understand it soon. So my body got over the cold quite quickly. After a couple of days, I returned to school completely healthy and continued to live my life peacefully. But this did not last long. The thing is that after my illness, my hair began to turn white. In just 2 weeks, I became the owner of perfectly white hair. My mother and I went to the hospital several times where I got tested, and each time the doctor said that I was absolutely healthy. My hair had just lost its color, and there was nothing wrong with that. At school, my sudden change of my image provoked a real fashion revolution. Many of my classmates considered my new hair very beautiful, often made compliments, and even asked for some beauty advice. I suddenly got popular, and my white hair became a real trend. I even knew a few girls who bleached their hair on purpose to look like me, and everything was fine until I noticed something else apart from my hair. My skin began to change as well. It started turning green, and every day I looked more and more like Shrek. I regularly applied a thick layer of foundation on my face and hands to try to hide this ugliness from my classmates, teachers, and from my mother. Of course, I failed to do so with the latter. When my mother saw what became of me, she immediately took me to a private clinic. After I got tested and the doctors received the results, they asked for permission to check out our home first aid kit. It was very weird, but we didn't mind. A few hours later, we were already sitting at the doctor's office, and on his table, there was that very spray with which I had treated my cold. The doctor said that because of this spray, there was an excess of silver in my body, and there was always a high level of this element in my blood. And this spray with the unusual composition became the reason why my rare disease developed. The doctors had 2 pieces of news for me, a good one and a bad one. The good news was that the disease was not dangerous to my health at all, and the bad news lied in the fact that it was incurable. The doctor said that in general, everything was fine with me. I was just going to be green for the rest of my life. What's the big deal? Ahead of me, there was the most terrible event, which I was very afraid of. I had to go back to school, so I begged my mother to allow me to study at home. But due to our modest budget, it was not possible. It was so scary to imagine the reaction of my classmates to my new look, and my expectations were realized in full. I became a laughingstock for the whole school. Everyone was constantly poking their fingers at me, taking pictures without permission, and calling me Shrek, witch, or goblin. Even my best friends turned their backs on me. In fact, they were ashamed of me. We no longer sat at the same table in the school cafeteria and did not walk together after class. We just stopped talking to each other. I was left all alone. The only person who supported me was my mother. I started to spend all my free time with her. We sat at home, watched movies, ate our favorite sweets all the time, did yoga, danced, and read books. If not for my mother, I would have hardly healed from my depression. It was she who helped me cope with my self-hatred and find the will to fight. As it turned out, my mother had totally unruly hair when she was a kid. It consisted of small, tight curls looking like macaroni pony, which is why she was often made fun of. But my mom didn't give up and started a real fashion revolution, just like I did a couple of weeks before. She began to style her hair and dress like a jazz singer, popular at that time. Thus, from a simple and non-attractive girl, my mom turned into the top beauty at her school. Other girls even began to follow her steps. This is how she turned her flaw into a virtue. Her story inspired me so much that I decided to prove to everyone that I can be beautiful too, and that neither green skin nor white hair makes me ugly. It's just that I'm not like everyone else to begin with. I dyed my hair red. I became Princess Fiona from Shrek. I also began to wear bright skirts and high heels, for which I was often reprimanded by the school administration. But I didn't care. New clothes and bright hair turned me into a completely different person. But my classmates didn't like it. At first, they were waiting for me near our school. It was raining that day, and I was wearing high heels and a beautiful dress. But some guys decided to change this and push me into the mud. I fell down right into the puddle, and none of my classmates rushed to help me. They were just filming me on their phones and laughing. Because of the shame and humiliation, I stayed at home for several days and refused to go to school. Fortunately, Halloween was coming soon, so I had a lot to do. All day long, I was cutting out jack-o'-lanterns, sewing costumes for myself and my mother, as well as looking for recipes for Halloween cookies. I've loved this holiday since childhood. My favorite costume was that of a witch. Well, my childhood dream has come true at that moment. Like no one else, I was perfectly fit for the role of an ugly old woman. But that's not what I'm talking about now. While I was sitting at home and baking cookies, a real Halloween party was being prepared at my school. At first, I was not going to go, but the constant calls from my classmates quickly convinced me to go. They were asking, or rather begging, me to be present at the party. I thought they wanted to apologize to me. I was so naive, and I decided to go to the party wearing my favorite witch costume. I just messed up my hair a little, put on a black dress, took a broom, and voila, it was all done. I was definitely going to get first prize at the Halloween costume competition. At the party, a very unpleasant surprise was awaiting me. When I saw my classmates, I was shocked. They all painted their faces green and put on red wigs. Girls were wearing colorful dresses and high heels. Then I understood everything. For Halloween, my classmates put on costumes for me. That is why they wanted me to come to the holiday party. They wanted to humiliate me again. I ran home in tears. There, I was met by my mom, who looked worried when I told her about my classmates. She was so angry that she wanted to go to the school and ruin the holiday for all my classmates. But I persuaded her not to do it. I don't know why I didn't want to go back to school anymore. My mom promised me that she would talk to the headmaster about transferring me to homeschooling. The day after Halloween, my mother was about to call the headmaster when suddenly my teacher called. He said that there was no need to come to school that day since all my classmates were taken to the hospital. After Halloween, they developed a rash and some even suffered from shortness of breath. The doctor said that it was due to an allergy to the green ink they used to paint their faces for Halloween. When the doctors made sure that the health of my classmates was no longer in danger, they were immediately discharged and all returned to school. At that moment, I was laughing at them. My classmates were covered in red spots from head to toe and looked very funny. They were also constantly scratching themselves and just looked like tomatoes. And many of my classmates also started having skin problems. Almost everyone developed acne and other horrible inflammations. Girls tried to hide it by applying foundation on their faces, but this only made it worse. In the end, they had to go to school with huge red pimples on their face. After such an unpleasant story, everyone felt very ashamed in front of me. They finally stopped bullying me, and my mom didn't even have to talk to the headmaster. Some of them even considered this allergy a sign from above and tried to make friends with me. Unfortunately, I never had true friends. People around still keep away from me, and they are frightened by my unusual appearance. And to be honest, it scares me too, but I'm trying to love myself for who I am. After all, appearance is not the most important thing, right? The soul of a person is much more significant, and it's not difficult to get used to the color of skin or hair. At least, I hope so. Thank you for listening to my story.